The nihilist penguin and the logic of global politics. The world keeps marching forward without belief. Nihilist penguin does not scream. It does not protest. It does not dream of revolution. It simply walks emotionless, indifferent, resigned. In internet culture, the nihilist penguin is a joke, a small, harmless creature trapped in a world that no longer makes sense, continuing its routine despite the collapse of meaning. But beneath the humor lies something deeply philosophical and disturbingly political. The nihilist penguin is not absurd because it denies meaning. It is absurd because it keeps going without it. This is precisely the condition of modern global politics. Nihilism, in its philosophical sense, is not the belief that nothing exists. It is the belief that nothing ultimately matters. Values remain, institutions remain, rituals remain, but belief evaporates. What once justified action now feels hollow, yet action continues anyway. This is where the penguin becomes a mirror. International relations today operate in a world where grand narratives have collapsed. Liberal progress, global justice, collective security, international law, these ideas still exist rhetorically, but they are no longer believed in with conviction. States repeat them out of habit, not faith. The penguin keeps walking. In classical international relations theory, states were assumed to pursue interests rationally. Later, constructivists argued that norms, identities, and beliefs shape behavior. But what happens when norms remain without belief? When identities persist without meaning? You get a system that functions mechanically, not morally. Treaties are signed and violated with equal ease. Institutions hold meetings while crises escalate. Summits produce statements that no one expects to change anything. The system does not collapse at zombifis. This is nihilistic order. The nihilist penguin does not rebel against the system because rebellion presupposes hope. It presupposes that resistance matters. The penguin has moved beyond despair into resignation. It does not expect improvement, but it also does not expect catastrophe to end things decisively. This attitude maps perfectly onto contemporary geopolitics. Great powers speak of red lines they do not enforce. Smaller states navigate between alliances they do not trust. International organizations issue warnings no one fears. Everyone knows the rules are broken, but everyone also knows there is no alternative framework ready to replace them. So the march continues from a philosophical perspective. This resembles Nietzsche's diagnosis of European nihilism, the moment when inherited values lose their binding force, but no new values are strong enough to replace them. The result is not chaos, but exhausted order. The nihilist penguin is not revolutionary. It is post-revolutionary. In international relations, this translates into what we might call procedural survival. States do not act because they believe in the system. They act because not acting would be more dangerous. Stability is maintained not by legitimacy, but by fear of the unknown. This is why even openly cynical actors defend institutions they undermine. They criticize the system while clinging to it. Like the penguin, they know the ice is cracking, but stepping into the water feels worse. The meme works because it captures this emotional contradiction. The penguin's expressionless face reflects a world that no longer expects coherence. Irony replaces ideology. Humor replaces belief. Sarcasm becomes a coping mechanism. This is not trivial. Memes are not distractions from politics. They are emotional diagnostics. The rise of nihilistic humor corresponds to a generation that has inherited crises without narratives. Climate collapse, endless wars, economic precarity explained endlessly, justified poorly. The penguin does not ask why. It already knows there is no satisfying answer. From a realist perspective, one could argue that nihilism simply strips away illusions and reveals power as it truly is. States pursue interests. Morality is secondary. But this explanation fails to capture the exhaustion at the core of the system. Even power feels routine now. Even dominance lacks triumph. The penguin walks not toward victory, but toward continuation. In this sense, the nihilist penguin is closer to late-stage realism than classical realism. It is realism without ambition. strategy without vision, survival without purpose, and this is dangerous. A nihilistic system is stable until it isn't, because when belief disappears, restraint weakens. Norms are followed not because they are right, but because they are familiar. Once familiarity breaks, there is nothing left to hold behavior in place. The penguin keeps walking, but it does not know where. This is why nihilism in international politics is not harmless irony. It is a warning sign. Systems can survive disbelief for a long time, but not indefinitely. When meaning erodes, miscalculation becomes more likely. When nothing matters, escalation loses its taboo. The penguin may look calm, but it is standing on thin ice. The brilliance of the meme is that it does not moralize. It does not instruct. It simply shows a condition, a world where action continues long after justification has vanished. And perhaps that is the most unsettling insight of all. The greatest threat to global order today is not ideology, fanaticism, or even conflict. It is indifference dressed as stability. The nihilist penguin walks because stopping would require believing that stopping matters. If this analysis resonated with you, philosophical logos exists to decode the ideas hiding beneath culture, memes, and global politics. If you value long-form, critical thinking beyond headlines and humor, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It directly supports this kind of work. Question for you: is today's global order collapsing or simply continuing without belief?